Hi, I'm Deborah Miller. This is my formative transformation. I wrote a book entitled Bitter Anguish in 2005. The book is a semi-autobiographical of my movement from a happy and very careless young girl who's married to a very reserved gentleman who covered my foolishness because of his love for the young girl. I named the two characters L.A., the young careless young girl, and I named her husband Mince, whose actual name is Willie. The two names combined, L.A. and Mince, is Lament. At the time of the writing of the book, I felt Lamentations chapter 1, verses 2 and 4 best described my through formative event narrative very appropriately. It was 1994 and I had just become a Christian. Okay, from this point, I'm going to quote some excerpts from the book, thus speaking in third person. Ellie had been praying to God for something called the Holy Spirit. She had been told that it was a gift to you from God and that she needed this gift to get into heaven. This is what she was told. Ellie had been asking God for this gift for about a year. She hadn't received this gift and now she was tired of asking. Maybe the Holy Spirit isn't for me, she grudgingly voiced. Maybe I've done something too horrible for God to give me this gift. Heedlessly, she uttered, no matter. He isn't giving it to me and I'm not asking anymore. I'll just forget about this God business and there's no more church for me. And as she dozed back off to sleep, she dreamed that she saw herself looking into a mirror and she appeared horribly grief-stricken. The dream frightened her so much so that she jumped out of bed, hurriedly got dressed and went to church. Fast forward, L.A. received the gift of the Holy Spirit that Sunday, per the words of the elders of her church that day. She left church absolutely convinced that her name was written in God's book of life and that every day was going to be a day of rejoicing after that Sunday. About a week later, L.A. began noticing how certain things began to change. The weekends her and her husband had spent together became far and few between. Her new lifestyle was costing her the friendship of her husband and of her friends. L.A.'s husband and all of her friends had become the antagonists in this surreal production playing out before her. Her husband wanted nothing to do with her God nor his Christian. He did not believe in God, and the theory of evolution was enough proof to him that there was no God. Changes began to happen so quickly at times, L.A. found it very hard to deal with life on God's terms. Her isolation just intensified her emerging trepidation. She would often imagine herself as one of many actors in a play. Her scene would call for a young, carefree lady sitting on a park bench enjoying ice cream with her beau. Unfortunately, when the curtain rose, the audience inhaled in unison as they saw a young woman dressed in pajamas crying in a closet. She crawled out of the closet long enough to tell the audience in her deepest southern drawl, "Y'all better breathe, 'cause more is coming." Her imagination helped her escape the aches and pains where she had not felt aches and pains before in her mind. Fast forward. One particular Saturday, L.A. prayed that she and Mince would spend some time together that day. Just as she started to dress, Mince invited her to go fishing and then sarcastically commented, "Don't dress too fancy, we're not going to church." Settling down at the lake, Mince began to open up as he was baiting his hook. He said, "Ellie, I'm sorry about the smart aleck tone I took with you earlier about your clothes. I will go to church with you tomorrow and I'll be in a good space." L.A. smiles loudly, thinking. Finally, the scene with the young lady sitting on the park bench eating ice cream with her beau has happened. Fast forward. Mince becomes a Christian. Now I close the book. About 1 year later, on a Saturday afternoon, Willie and I was at a restaurant when I noticed that his sense of balance was off. I immediately ended the scene at the restaurant and rushed him to emergency. That day, he was diagnosed with a brain tumor. The doctor came in and said, "Mr. Alloway, you have an abnormality on your brain." We both laughed and said, "We knew that." The doctor said, "This is not a laughing matter. This is serious. You have lung cancer." He was later told that he had about 2 years to live. Within those 2 years, one day, Willie yelled at me, and it shocked me because he had never in all the 16 years of our marriage raised his voice at me. He said, and may I say very sternly, I should have taught you how to prudently handle finances and expenses because you are so unwise when it comes to living life prudently. You spend money like it grows on trees. How are you going to survive? His words sunk deep within my soul, and I began to become afraid of what would happen to me after he died. How would I take care of myself? He left me handicapped. As I began to experience the bitter anguish of this formative event playing out before me, a song by an American rock band called The Cars, entitled Drive, its words signal the next step in my lifelong process of moving from imprudent through bitter anguish to prudence, because I needed to answer the questions of the words who. Fortunately, that gift I had received earlier from God took my hand and led me on. The Holy Spirit was the who.
Can't go